I start to put tension on my string drawback. I was like, okay, I'm gonna smoke.
It's him. You can look at the horns when he's dead. I'm in the zone. Let the arrow go. Just perfect.
When they lose their front shoulders and you start, that's how you know there's smoke.
Went about 5-10 more yards. He probably went 20 yards total, tipped over, tried getting back up, and I saw him fall over.
We rough scored him here in the garage that night. We got like 156 and something like that, and then the next day we came up to 163 even.
You're listening to the White Cat Outdoors podcast, bringing you to the table where we talk about the outdoors.
What's going on, everyone? It is episode 56 of the White Cat Outdoors podcast, and once again, I am coming to you from a cell phone. Nick and Tom are in studio, though, as they always are.
It's like a makeshift studio tonight.
Yeah, little emergency studio, if you will.
Yep, in Nick's bedroom.
Yeah, last week, it actually wasn't last week, it was just like a couple days ago, I found out Mom has COVID, so since I've been hanging out with her, I figured we better not be all in studio at the parents' house, hanging out at the bar and hanging out around me. So I gave you guys all the equipment, and I'm calling in on the phone. So it's just one of the many COVID obstacles that everyone's been having to deal with. So
have you been having any COVID-like symptoms?
No, nothing. I've been totally fine.
Good deal. That's what we like to hear.
It's good stuff. Well, I hope your mom feels better soon. Hopefully we can get through this quick, and we'll be joining each other back in studio in no time.
Yeah, I'm sure everything will be good. She hasn't really shown a lot of symptoms. She had one day where she was feeling kind of sick. So other than that, she's been good.
Well, good.
I'm sure next week we'll be back in the studio doing our normal thing.
Look forward to it.
It's kind of funny that we actually are going virtual, like bringing you in from you're not physically in the studio with us, because it was actually works out perfect for what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you want to let the listeners know what we're going to get into tonight, and we'll just roll right into it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that, show season's coming right up. We got, the next couple of months should have been filled with shows, like ATA, Harrisburg, all your typical shows that everyone's going to, but they all got canceled. I don't know how long ago. Harrisburg got canceled back in October or something. It was a long time ago. So everyone kind of put the kibosh to show season, but ATA is going on all this week. Well, it'll be over by the time we release this, but ATA is going on, but they went to all virtual. Everything is, via computers. Everyone's putting videos out. It's all a live stream sort of deal that they're all doing. So
yeah, and you actually have to be a member of ATA to even look at the booths or anything right now. It's run the same way.
It's basically exactly the same thing as the regular. If you were to attend the show, you have to be an ATA member and stuff. They just made it all virtual instead, just so they could at least do something and still have all the new product reveals and stuff.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges I noticed, which was actually why the reason we're going to do what we're doing tonight, is typically ATA, there's a lot of media outlets that show up at the event and can let the consumer know what new products are coming out, because ATA is not a consumer show. So the only way somebody has any way to know what's there is by videos and podcast companies there and promoting the new products and talking to these business owners, which, because it's all virtual, there's not really much of that going on this year.
Yeah, normally the first every day of the show, there's nonstop people cranking out YouTube videos and new products, people testing stuff out, different people going to different booths, talking to different people. And this year, there's still a little bit of that, but it's definitely not near as much. It's definitely a lot harder to look at the new products if you're not actually, on the live stream, like it is most years.
Yeah, it's been difficult. So what we did is kind of did all the legwork for everybody and did some research, figured out what new products were being launched this week, and we're just going to bring them out to everybody in just one simple platform. We're going to talk about a handful of different products that are being released this week. Kind kind of just because, I mean, it's tough to look it up because, like I said, there's no YouTube videos out there. Besides Lancaster Archery's put out a few.
Yeah, they've been like pretty much the only consistent one that's been putting out videos every time they're looking at something new. They've put 4 or 5 videos up already, and it's only 2 days into the show.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll keep cranking them out the rest of the show.
Yeah, for sure. And like anybody, most people probably understand ATA is the Archery Trade Association. So all the products we're talking about today are pretty directly related to archery, but obviously like tree stands and stuff can be used for rifle and stuff. So I guess we'll start it off with just some of the new archery, like the bows and crossbows. And I'm not sure if Tom's aware of everything we're going on tonight, so it'll be good to get a first look impression from Tom, which I think I kind of wanted to do on purpose because it's nice to get that first look feel for the listeners and stuff, because he hasn't had time to really look at them too hard and just kind of give you the same feel that most people will have when they hear this information for the first time as well.
So we could just lie to Tom all night and tell him about all this new crazy shit that's coming out.
It's crazy.
None of it's real.
Yeah. A 50-pound bow that shoots 400 feet per second. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. You're going to love this, Tom.
It's wild.
So I guess to kick things off, we'll start with Hoyt, which just this week released their new carbon series bow, the RX5, which, I mean, is in progression with the RX4 from last year. Basically, Hoyt's been probably, I would say, the leader in carbon bows, which comes with a price tag. It's $1,700 bow, but
Is that just
that's
bare bones
bare
the
bow. Yeah, $1,700. But I see guys shooting carbon bows at the pro shops all the time. But just to give you guys some specs on that, it's 342 feet per second is the IBO speeds. It's 30 inches axle to axle, which is pretty short, but I prefer a shorter bow for hunting. And it's got a 6 1/4 inch brace height, which is moderately forgiving, I would say. And it's coming in at 4.4 pounds.
And honestly, for a hunting bow, like when they talk about how like unforgiving the shorter brace heights are, as far as hunting bows go, you're not really going to get that tweak that people are so worried about at 20 yards. Like you can make a lot of mistakes at 20, 30 yards.
Hunting distances, really.
Yeah, at hunting distances, you're not really going to notice that unforgivingness of that short brace height. It's not until, like, if you're shooting, like, if you were to start getting out to 70, 80, 100 yards, is where you're going to start to notice how it's unforgiving. But for most people in, like, a whitetail situation, you would never notice that short brace height.
So,
what it would take away from you.
Quick question. I have no idea what you're talking about as far as brace height and that it's forgiving.
The brace height is the distance between the riser and the string.
When it's down all the way.
Yeah, when it's down all the way. It's 6 1/4 inches. Now, the bigger that number is, the longer that distance is, the more forgiving the bow is when it comes to accuracy and, minor faults in your form. When it's, something like 5 inches, it's less forgiving, and the reason being is that your arrow is on the string for an extra 2 inches, meaning like the arrow's in contact with the bow longer, which means your form has to be perfect for that much longer. Like Frank said, you can have a lot of mistakes at 20 to 30 yards that are never going to show up, but when you start getting into the target world where you're shooting 70, 80, 90 yards, those tendencies can be reflected pretty great. But one of the biggest, I guess, innovations that I noticed with the new Hoyt RX5 was the stabilizer and where it's mounted. So the RX5 is going to come standard with a 2.5 inch stabilizer. Now, that doesn't sound very impressive until you start looking at where it's located. Basically, they've moved their stabilizer, which they have your standard stabilizer mount, but they've added an additional one to the bottom of the riser. And it's 2.5 inches, which, because of where it's at the bottom of the riser and how far it's sticking out, it's equivalent to a 7-inch stabilizer mounted at your standard area where all other bows are at. So with quite a bit less weight and bulkiness, they've achieved something I think is pretty cool. I mean, I haven't shot Hoyt, but we're just going off of specs and what they've released. But I don't know.
It's definitely an interesting idea because, like you said, you subtract a bunch of weight. You could have a 7-inch stabilizer or a 2-inch stabilizer. If you're using it for a hunting bow, it's something that you're going to be holding. You could have to draw on a deer and hold for 5 minutes. It's nice, and to carry it around if you're going, out west, you don't want to have to carry any more weight than you have to.
And just the bulkiness of having a 7-inch stabilizer off the front of your bow versus 2.5-inch. Like if you're somebody that hunts in ground blinds, which a 30-inch bow is perfect for that anyway. It's just way more compact. So I thought that was pretty innovative. It was probably the most impressive feature that I noticed on the new bow.
Yeah, and I've definitely never seen another bow that implements a stabilizer really anywhere other than your classic position, just like a little bit below your hand.
Yeah. Tom, do you have any remarks on the new Hoyt RX-5?
I mean, it's tough, without physically seeing the bow, but I do think that having the 2-inch stabilizer located where this one is could definitely be an advantage rather than, like Frank said, you're going to save a lot of weight if you have to hold it for a long time. If, like you said, you're in a ground blind with, windows where you only have so much room, then it's definitely going to be an advantage. So I think it's interesting. I'd like to see it personally to really understand.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah,
it'll
definitely be cool to get your hands on it. Yeah.
So I guess the next compound bow to talk about was coming from Expedition Archery. They're not. I mean, they're big, but they're not. I wouldn't put them in like the Hoyt Matthews PSE category. But they kind of shook things up this year big time by introducing a hybrid or new alloy riser to their bow. They're calling it Xloy, which is by Magnite. And basically it's a new alloy of aluminum with carbon infused into the aluminum. And then they're press forged and then CNC machined the risers. And they basically it is allowed for a lighter riser than your carbon bows, but I don't know. It's got the stability of an aluminum bow. It doesn't have all the shock that your carbon bows typically have.
And I've never shot a carbon bow before. I've held them, and I could definitely see where you would, like, just holding it, I could definitely tell that you would feel more shock just because the material that it's made of. So
is the idea of a carbon bow is to be lighter?
Yes.
Then
yeah.
Okay, and what's, I guess, I don't know much about bows. What's the other bows typically made out of?
Aluminum.
So
like 6061 aluminum is pretty standard.
Carbon and aluminum, and the big advantage to carbon is the weight.
Yes, but you sacrifice stability in a sense where there's a lot more shock, like hand shock in a carbon bow typically. Hoyt's done...
Right, just makes sense. It's so much lighter that there's not as much to absorb the shock of the string that goes off.
So now you have Expedition Archery coming out with their X Series bows that are a hybrid of the two. Basically, there's carbon fiber within, like, infused in the aluminum. So you're lighter than aluminum, and you have the
stability.
the stability, exactly. Their bows, they're going to be a little bit cheaper than carbon, but higher than an aluminum bow. Typically, your carbon bows are, that $1,400, $1,600, $1,700, where this one's going to be right around $1,200 to $1,300.
Now,
that's not bad because, like you were talking with the Hoyt stuff, they're typically a little more expensive, and usually their stuff's more expensive because you're paying for innovation. You're paying for their next idea, and
that's exactly what Expedition is doing this time. There's a lot of innovation in that, being that it's a brand new material.
It's cool that it's still not like, I mean, it's an expensive bow, but it's not, a $1,700 bow. You're getting all that innovation that you would normally jack the price up for a little bit more reasonable price than some of the other bigger manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly. So that was another really cool bow that's hitting the market that I think was kind of earth-shattering, I guess. It's people, I mean, for years on Facebook and forums and whatnot have been complaining that there hasn't been any innovation in newer bows. And I can kind of agree to that, because there's, we've been stuck at, for the most part, 345 feet per second has been pretty standard for most companies, and there hasn't been any real
but that's
innovation.
Come fairly recently.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the people have complained that the last 3 to 4 years, there's been very, very little innovation in compound bows, and I feel like this year,
even if you look at it over the past 20 years, talking to my dad and your dad about things that were the new big innovation in archery when they were coming up shooting, in the 90s. Then it went away. I know the solo cam was a thing a long time ago, and then
Matthews did it
was a thing. Yeah, dual cams was a thing before that, and then they were like, oh, it's better to have a solo cam. But now they're switching back to dual cams for almost any bow. So they kind of go back and forth and almost recycle ideas. They obviously put a new twist on it and make it better, but they basically are just recycling a lot of ideas for the most part. So it is cool to see when someone comes out with a totally brand new idea.
Yeah, so like you said, this is Expedition Archeries is totally unseen. It hasn't been used before. So it'll be interesting to see how that bow holds up.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, I don't know anything about them, and I obviously haven't seen them shoot because they're new, but you never know, when someone comes out with a totally new idea, it could be a total flop, or they could knock it out of the park. So that's one of those things where I don't like to be the first one to jump on the wagon and buy those sort of things, just because you've never seen it before and you don't know how it's going to work.
It's probably good to wait. I shouldn't say good, but I feel like my dad was talking about it the other day, where he would like to wait a year, because in his mind that first year, there's going to be some bugs that are unforeseen. So say they come out with this bow in 2021. That first year there could be some bugs, and hopefully by 2022, when their new model comes out, all those bugs are worked out.
Yeah, and you see that with anything across the board. I've been looking at buying a new carry pistol lately, and every new gun that comes out a couple years ago, it was the SIG P365 was the carry gun, but then after, throughout the first year of production, there were some issues here and there, and people were complaining about stuff, and then Springfield came out with the Hellcat to kind of combat and say, they're the next new big full-time carry gun, and SIG had to step up their game and fix all of their stuff that they had wrong. So you always get new ideas and people fixing their old ideas to stay with the people coming out with the new stuff. So it is nice to kind of wait and see what happens with those things and what people have to say about them that are shooting them a lot.
Yeah, for sure. That was all I had for bows that were released this week. I mean, there was a few others, but we're trying to stick with just the more innovative bows brought out. I mean, obviously Matthews came out with
their new line of bows at ATA.
Yeah, those were, I guess, in my opinion, the top two most innovative that I saw. And I was going to now move over to the crossbow world and talk about the top two that I thought were innovative in my mind. And because it was released first, we'll start with the Excalibur Dual Strike. Have you guys heard that one yet?
Mm-mm.
I didn't read much about that. I read more about the Raven one.
Yeah, well, Excalibur Dual Strike is the first of its kind.
Oh, is that the one that
2 arrows?
Oh,
no, it shoots 2 arrows.
Yeah,
not at the same time. It's got 2 separate triggers, but it's got 4 limbs, 2 rails, 2 arrows.
Is this legal for hunting?
I definitely didn't read about that.
I have no idea if it's legal because it's the first of its kind. It's basically a over-under shotgun, but for crossbows.
Quick follow-up shot.
And it's exactly what they're advertising. It's bang bang, 2 shots with the crossbow. Like I said, they're the first of its kind. It'll be interesting to see if any laws come out with this. It seems. I mean, my thought is at what point is it no longer archery?
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I mean, it's a super, super cool idea.
It's very innovative. I give them props for it. But at what point is it no longer considered archery hunting?
Yeah, because archery is
It's primitive.
You're taking a step back. You're trying to make it more difficult. You got to hone in on your one shot and make it count. You don't get to start flinging a bunch of lead in the air. You got to make that one shot count. And like I said, it's a super cool idea, but I don't think it's like you're getting away from the roots of archery hunting at that point.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Tommy?
I mean, I don't think you should just be flinging lead. I think in gun season you should still hone in on your senses and make
totally
one ethical shot. But the way I look at it is you do hear of a lot more wounded deer in archery season, which is definitely unfortunate. So I think if you can give people an advantage where I think what happens a lot, I think what happens a lot is you have people that aren't prepared to go into the woods archery hunting that still take their compound bow and take shots that they aren't prepared to take and end up wounding deer. But I think if you give, archery hunters an extra advantage to be more deadly, which I think two back-to-back shots, because even though they are going, let's just say 320 feet per second. I don't know what the specs on this bow are, but as soon as you fire that first arrow and it hits the deer, it's going to be in a totally different position in moving when you fire that second arrow. So I don't.
With that theory, it almost seems that second arrow is going to be most likely unethical. If you shoot, you got a deer at 30 yards that you shoot once and it takes off running, I feel like you shouldn't be taking that second shot anyway, where, you might get somebody that's going to throw another bolt out there.
Yeah,
I guess I kind of changed. Not really for that situation, because how many times have you, shot at an animal and missed? And, I've seen it happen. I've done it. You shoot, even with a rifle.
And it just stands there?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So instead of having to recock your bow and go through it, and I think it's more for that situation rather than shooting at a running deer after you just shot it, because obviously that's not ethical at all to do with a bow. But I think it's more for that situation where you shoot and oh shit, I missed and it's still standing there.
Yeah, you're probably right. I still don't agree with putting it in the same category as archery.
No, I don't either, but it's just another, like I said, it's a cool idea and it's another innovation in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And crossbows, I feel like have advanced quite a bit in the recent years, just with most states allowing them all of archery season. And I know New York is in the process of allowing crossbows for the entire archery season.
Mm-hmm.
The other crossbow I wanted to talk about, which you guys both alluded to, was the new Raven R500.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have two from Raven, but we'll start with the R500, which this was extremely innovative in my opinion. They have the first crossbow, whatever. I mean, any bow to shoot 500 feet per second, and that's not a bullshit IBO rating that almost every archery or bow manufacturer uses. Raven's guaranteeing that your crossbow that you pick up will shoot 500 feet per second or more out of the box with the arrows they provide.
Yeah, I was going to say that because I was watching Lancaster Archery put a video up and he was talking to a guy from Raven, and he said, that is what the arrows that we recommend that you shoot out of this bow that we sell, with it.
It comes in a package, yeah.
Yeah, they said that is what we guarantee you will get out of it when you go into your backyard and shoot it. That's not shooting, like you said, IBO. That's
it's not an IBO speed. That's a guaranteed speed, which I thought was really impressive.
Arrow, that's a legit speed.
Yeah.
And I'm not at all a crossbow guy. Everyone, we've all talked about it before. I'm not a big crossbow guy, but when I was watching the video with that, I was impressed. Not only because of the 500 feet per second, but just how compact the bow is.
3.6 inches fully cocked, and I believe I think it was 7 inches uncocked. I mean, it's very
it was just
compact.
Over 7 axle to axle uncocked and 3.6 cocked axle to axle.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good innovation that still keeps you in the realm of archery. I mean, obviously there's advantages to crossbows, obviously, over a compound. Just like
that's more or less where I was getting at, where I think crossbows would be great. It's tough to argue that a crossbow's not going to be a little bit more deadly at 30 yards than a compound bow.
I mean, they're shooting faster. You don't have to draw back. There's less practice required to be accurate. So, like, crossbows definitely have their advantage. But I feel like archery season, some people like the challenge. A lot of us like the challenge.
Oh, absolutely.
But Raven, I believe, is still staying in the realm of crossbows. They've just come up with some technology that's allowed them to shoot at lightning speeds.
Yeah.
And what comes with that is a flat shooting arrow up to 50 yards, which is pretty impressive as well. That was what they were advertising, is that their bolt will stay flat out to 50 yards.
That's insane.
Yeah. Now it comes with a price tag. I think it's north of $3,000, but
yeah, it's pretty pricey.
You're, like we talked about before, you're paying for the innovation. Because, like, I mean, before that, the fastest fastest crossbow was rated like 440 feet per second, and I don't believe that was a guaranteed speed out of the box. So, they've definitely
stepped up the crossbow game big time with that. It's no joke. And not, like I said, I'm not a crossbow guy, but I definitely give them big time props.
You can't deny how impressive that is.
Yeah,
whether you're a crossbow guy or not, just for the technology involved, whether you would ever want to hunt with it or not. I'd like to shoot it. I'd be down to shoot it.
Yeah, I would definitely. I've never in my life shot a crossbow before, but I would definitely get down. I would shoot. I wouldn't hunt with it, but I would definitely want to shoot it just to do it, just to see what it's really like.
I mean, you got to think. I think my dad was saying like shotguns are at like 1,200 feet per second. You're talking that. I mean, that's almost half the speed, which is extremely impressive, in my opinion. But, Raven not only came out with that bow, but they also came out with the R18 with vertical limbs. So we've all seen reverse limbs. You got reverse limbs, the parallel limbs. This is the first of its kind with vertical limbs on a crossbow. I have no idea how it works because there's literally no videos out yet, but the bow is the height of it's only 1.3 inches tall, like cocked, and uncocked is 4.1, and it's less than 5 inches wide all the time. Like, it doesn't get. I mean, I don't know any way other to explain it. It's instead of the limbs being horizontal on the plane that you're holding your crossbow, they're vertical.
That's why. Yeah, I didn't see any pictures or anything of it. I literally have no idea what to even think about that. Like, it sounds wicked cool, but
yeah,
I don't
basically.
know what
So
it
the
would look
limbs,
like.
the rail is totally contained within the bow, and the limbs come.
So you never have to worry about smacking off a tree to your side.
Nope. Yeah, so the limbs come across the top, like parallel to where your rail would be, and they do is when it's drawn back, they bend down instead of like in or out, like it just bends down. So there's never, like Tom said, there's never any chance of it when, like, 'cause I mean, if you hunt with a crossbow, you understand that the limbs expand when you shoot, so you have to be mindful of what's around you when you shoot. And
I've heard of stories where people shoot their crossbow and a limb, when it expands, smacks off the side of a tree, and then their whole bow blows up.
Yeah, that can't happen with this because the limbs come across the top of the bow, so you can rest it on a surface, like on a shooting stick or whatever, and shoot it. It's not going to expand out or down. It's just going to be up like 2 inches.
So you just got to make sure there's not a stick 2 inches above you.
Exactly. But if there's a stick 2 inches above you, you probably can't see through the scope.
It's true.
The one drawback of this one is the IBO, or I guess it's not IBO because Raven guarantees their speeds, is 330 feet per second. So you're right in there with a compound on speed. So, but what that does achieve is, somebody that can no longer pull back their compound, they're not going to be at any bigger advantage in the aspect of speeds. They won't have to draw back though. But I was kind of taken back by the speed rating, but also this is brand new technology, and I'm sure that they'll improve on it in the future because it seems like it's a very interesting concept.
Gonna get way hopped up.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I totally forgot about. It was, and I don't even know if it's a thing on other crossbows, but that the first Raven that we talked about, it has like an electronic thing that you can hook.
Yeah,
onto.
the motor.
Yeah, it's like an electronic motor that you literally just push a button and it cocks it. You don't have to have cables or anything to pull your bow back.
Is
or,
that
you know,
an
so if you're
option?
somebody.
Yeah, it's an option.
So you
Yeah,
can manually pull it back?
Yep, you can and you can always override the motor with a manual crank. Now theirs is on the side with like an Allen key. So, but it can always be overridden by that. So
Yeah,
you don't
and
have,
you can decock it with that. So if you have it cocked, you don't have to fire the bow. You can just hit the button and let it down.
Which I think is pretty good because there's a lot of shock and vibration that goes into those limbs. And if you hunt every day and you fire it every day, that's a lot of stress on those limbs. So if you can just release it rather than shoot it, I think you'll save yourself.
and it's on a threaded system, so you can't. There's no worry of the mechanism malfunctioning. It can't like break and it release halfway through. It's on a thread, so it's there's constant tension going.
Yeah,
so
unless somehow all of the threads break at once, it's not gonna.
Yeah, and what I thought was neat about that electric cocking device is it comes on and off very easily, because I think they said it weighs like 2 pounds, which 2 pounds isn't a lot, but there's a lot of guys that are shaving weight everywhere they can.
Yeah,
it comes off. They didn't say exactly, but they said it comes off extremely quick. So I'm assuming some sort of like DeWalt battery style connection, and so you could literally cock it at the truck, pop the battery off, and put it in the truck and go out hunting. If for some reason you have to re-cock it because you don't have your Excalibur twin strike, and you have to send a second arrow, you could always crank it out in the woods, but you just wouldn't have the electric motor. So that's a good. Thank you for bringing that part back up, White.
Yeah, that was like one of the biggest things that impressed me about it was that you can decock it with that. And I totally forgot to bring it up.
Yeah. So that's all we had for like bows themselves, but I do want to talk a little bit about optics and what has come out in the optics world. And I'm not a huge nerd when it comes to optics, but there was a few or two big things in optics that I really liked that I wanted to bring up and see what you guys think. The first one comes from Sig Sauer, which actually is the same manufacturer that Frank was talking about, the P365. And they're the Electro Optics, and they're calling it the Zulu 6. And basically, it's a set of binoculars, 10x42s, but a gimbal has been installed on the binoculars. So like it's like integrated.
What's a gimbal?
A gimbal is basically it eliminates wind movement and walking. So like, you ever seen those videos of somebody like on a football field, and the cameraman has that huge contraption strapped to his chest with the camera so he can run down the field and it stays smooth the entire way?
Yeah.
Basically, they've incorporated that gimbal into the binoculars. So when you're looking at something at long distance and you're moving or the wind blows you or something, your binocular stays stable while you're looking. So it's not like attached to you or anything. It's all integrated into it. So where you're holding, and if you go to move, it stays, stable right where you're looking, which I thought was pretty neat. I don't know if there's anything out there like that. But
I've definitely never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of it.
It's super cool because, like, when you're trying to, like, glass a deer or something, because, like, around here where we have point restrictions, if it's out there a couple 100 yards, you try glassing it to make, see if it's a legal buck before you pull the trigger on it. If you're kind of shaky or, like you said, the wind's blowing, it's pretty tough to get a good look at its antlers that far away if you can't stay steady. So to have that tool, I mean, I've definitely never heard of another optic manufacturer doing anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sweet that you can.
Yeah, and it's run off of just
look into those more.
Yeah, it's run off of a single battery because the gimbal it's a electric component. And I mean, obviously, like if it's not powered up, they're going to work like regular binoculars.
Yeah, they'll still function.
And
just not
the price tag on that was $800, which at first to me sounded crazy, but then when I was looking at prices of binoculars, they're really not that crazy when you get into high-end binoculars.
If you get a decent set of binoculars, you'll spend at least $400, $500, $600 for, I don't want to say a lower end of good, but like
more affordable. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you'll still get a decent binocular, but you're not, Swarovskis you'll spend $2,300 on.
Mm-hmm.
So for it to be $800, that's not like holy shit, I can't believe they're asking that. That's a pretty reasonable price point for a decent optic.
Yeah. The other optic component, and this is more like a camera, but it goes with optics, and it's the Tacticam Spotter LR, and it's a camera that attaches to all spotting scopes. Basically, they've come up with an array of, I guess, fitments that come with it that'll attach to, they say, any spotting scope, and it allows you to
like get your camera looking down through.
Yes, but what it does is this camera records in 4K, which is the highest. I think there might be some 5K stuff out there, but like the Sony Alpha 7, which is a like $2,000 camera, is shooting in 4K.
Mm-hmm.
So this camera allows you to record through your spotting scope, 700 yards away, and have like a crystal clear image of what you're seeing for recording purposes, or just to ease your eye strain, so you're not staring through optics the entire time. And
you definitely have a lot of eye strain looking through those higher magnification optics, because most spotting scopes are like 60, 80, 100 power.
Yeah.
So you definitely strain the shit out of your eyes looking through them all day. So it'll be able to lean back and just look at your phone. Definitely would eliminate all of that I should say all of the eye strain.
But quite a bit of it. And there's actually a 4x zoom on the camera as well, so you could actually dial it in even just a little bit more. And then it takes a 128 gigabyte memory card, so you can record a lot of film on that. And what shocked me with this is the price was $300 for this device. And I mean, that's putting you in like your top end GoPros. And
sure.
I was extremely impressed by that price and how they're achieving that. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets used this year.
Yeah, and I've seen other like devices that you can like attach your phone to spotting scopes and stuff, but I've never seen a camera built specifically for that. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how it works out. And I've never even used one like just for your phone on spotting scope, because I don't own a spotting scope, but they're definitely really neat as far as, like you said, recording, because a lot of people out west that are recording hunts and stuff, if you're shooting an elk at 600 yards, you're not going to zoom in with your phone or whatever camera you have unless you got a really, really good lens on your camera. You're not going to zoom into that 600 yards to get a good look at what you're shooting, if it's an elk that's 600 yards away. So to have that on your spotting scope would just alleviate you spending a whole lot more money on a really, really, really good camera to be able to film that hunt.
Exactly. So moving away from optics, the last category I was looking at was tree stands and, I guess, elevation devices, if that makes sense. So first off was Summit came out with their Watchtower Ultra, which is a 10-foot tripod. And now, obviously, there's lots of tripods out there, but they always, to me, seem like they come with a pretty hefty price tag. And because there's a couple field edges and stuff that tripods would work really nice on the farms we hunt, but I just never could justify spending, almost $1,000 on these tripods. But,
yeah, it's tough to pull the trigger on something that costs that much money. Like, I don't mind spending that on like a mobile setup, something that you could take anywhere with you and set it up in literally any situation you want. But to drop that big money on something that's going to stay in one spot and be a pain in the ass if you want to move it somewhere, kind of sucks.
So what was awesome for me is this baby's coming in at $279.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and so it's got a 360 swiveling mesh seat, so super comfortable. But the one thing that's always aggravating is that those seats get chewed up by squirrels and other wildlife so quick. And they've come up with a quick disconnect system that you can just pack the seat in and out each time you want to go. I mean, it's optional. You could leave it out there for the squirrels if you want.
Just buy a new seat.
You could buy a new seat, but this gives you the option to pull it and all you have to do is walk in with your seat on your back and snap it in, and you're good to go. So
that'd be nice too in the winter times. You don't get there and your seat's frozen.
So I thought that was a neat little feature, because we've got some tripods up at the farm that the seats are bolted to the platform, and they suck at this point because they're 20 years old. The bearings have worn out. They wobble really bad. So it was pretty neat idea, and just the fact that it's under $300 was a huge advantage to me.
Yeah, I agree with Tom. The most convenient thing about it is that you can take the seat. You don't have a wet ass when you go sit down. In the wintertime, it's not all full of snow, because you walk out and like there's melted snow or rain. The seat's all wet. You don't want to sit down in it because then you're going to be freezing because you're soaking wet. So to be able to take the seat back out with you and have a dry seat every time you walk in is convenient.
Yeah. And then the other tree stand, and this is actually more of a company that I had just heard about due to ATA, and it's True North Tree Stands. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them.
No, I've never heard of them.
They're in the realm with, your welded, expanded metal tree stands. So they're not they're not cast aluminum, they're not water jet or anything like that. So they're more of affordable price. But what they did that's coming out this fall, they released it, but it's not going to be for sale or available until the fall of 2021, is a double man lock on. Yeah, you heard it.
What?
Yeah. 500-pound capacity, lock on, 2 separate seats, same platform. It's like 43 inches wide. It sounds crazy. But what was even crazier to me was that it's got basically all of True North tree stands have a quick connect bracket similar to the Millennium tree stands. So you can have these brackets anywhere and carry the stand in. And now
How heavy is it?
That's what we're getting at. Now, it's heavy. It's a 2-man lock on, but it's right around 40 pounds, which it's heavy, but I was surprised by that weight, to be honest, because it's not like a bench style seat either. It's got 2 bucket seats with armrests and like mesh backs, mesh bottoms, and like a footrest out front. So it's a very luxurious.
Does it just kind of like fold up?
Yeah, folds up flat, and you pack it in like sideways. But it was pretty impressive, I thought, because I hate ladder stands because I feel like I feel like it's impossible to be hidden in a ladder stand, unless you're like tucked into a pine tree. And I guess putting a 40-inch wide platform up in the middle of a tree probably isn't exactly hidden either, but pretty innovative for a double man lock on.
Yeah, for sure. It's another new idea.
They're calling it the Mentor, I believe. And basically,
I was literally going to say that. That sounds like it would be good for like a dad and his kids, to go out. It wouldn't be something like me and you were going to go sit in.
Yeah.
It would definitely
be nice for filming.
Yeah. And filming. And then the biggest thing for me was, first time I read that, because all 3 of us do a lot of mobile hunting, my first thought was, how the hell am I going to hang that? A 40-pound stand, hanging from a tree. Like, how am I supposed to, get this thing hung? Even with that easy hang bracket, that's a lot of weight to hold with one arm, trying to get that in that filament.
Yeah, for sure.
But what they've come up with is a pulley system that mounts to the bracket. So essentially, it is like a pulley that has like a rope system, basically, where you can just pull it up once you get up to your tree, and it helps lock it right in place. So like you don't have all of the weight just in one arm. So it'll be interesting. But
yeah, that's another one of those ideas that I think I'm gonna want to see it for a couple years before I.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't think we have at this point a whole lot of use for a double man lock on.
No.
Because you can put 2 lock ons in a tree, but if you want that sense of security right next to your kid, you're in the same stand right there. I think it'll be really cool for that. And their leveling system is pretty neat for them. Instead of the slide in the I-beam, they're basically the V bracket that is on the bottom of the platform that would connect to the tree on your standard tree stand. That's on like a slide with like a shear pin, essentially. So you can move it out kind of like the extension, like the brace that's on your ladder stand that goes to the tree.
Yeah.
It's essentially that, but at the bottom of your platform, and it seemed to work
Mhm.
pretty slick. So
That's
a little
wild.
bit, yeah, a little innovation there. I was pretty impressed with.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that we like used to make jokes about, is having like a double lock on. Like we'd be putting up a ladder stand and talk about how we would rather carry in a double lock on instead of carrying a ladder in.
Yeah,
But,
well, that's the other thing. People like, yeah, 40 pounds is a lot, but I don't know if anybody's ever moved a double ladder stand into the woods.
It's a lot more than 40 pounds.
Yeah. So when you look at it in that aspect, it's extremely lightweight for what you have.
yeah.
So
And for rifle hunting, I like having a double ladder stand just for me. It's nice if you're going to be sitting there all day to have the extra space to set your backpack or extend your legs a little bit if you're going to be sitting there all day long. So in that aspect, you can hunt it by yourself, and it's a lot easier to carry around by yourself than a double ladder stand.
This
yeah.
is true.
So it'll be interesting to see that. The only thing, the drawback on that, and I don't know, I didn't look into it too much, but True North tree stands only have a 1-year warranty on their stands, which I honestly, I don't know what, I know like our cast and our water jet stands that we use are lifetime, but I honestly don't know what the welded grate stands are typically for their warranty. So when I'm used to my mobile setup that's a lifetime warranty, the 1-year warranty really shocked me.
Mm-hmm.
Millennium has
I don't know either. That could be standard. For
I know
those type of
Millennium is
stands.
3 years, but I don't know what Summit's is. I mean, like I said, I can't imagine it failing after a year. But
No.
it was a little concerning to me, and I figured it was worth throwing out there for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
So those were, I guess, the main innovations that I saw so far. Like I said, it's been tough to try and pull the material out for everybody. And like I said, we've skipped over a few things that were released, but I'm trying to just hit the big ones that, kind of had the whoa factor. So it'll be exciting to see
factor?
the whoa factor. Yeah, like whoa.
I'm more of a wow factor.
A wow
kinda
factor.
guy.
Tom, you a whoa or a wow guy?
I've never heard either.
You've never
You've heard someone say wow factor?
You've never heard of the wow factor or the whoa factor?
No.
You're crazy, dude.
You're crazy. I like you, man, but you're crazy.
You're crazy. Anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, that wraps it up for what I've seen for ATA. Frank, is there anything else you were poking around that was interesting to you?
No, not really as far as products go. It was, like you said, it's tough to find the information. Lancaster Archer's been doing a really good job of putting videos up, so it'll be interesting to see what they have up for the rest of the week. But definitely a big shout out to the people that ran the ATA show this year. I'm sure that was quite a logistical nightmare to have it be all virtual. So that was definitely super innovative and a huge feat, and awesome for the people that were planning on going to ATA, because I go to Harrisburg every year. It sucks that it's canceled, and it's a big bummer. So for people to try to keep the shows going through all of this it's a nice thing to see, even though it's a really shitty year for all of it.
Yeah, and the way they broke it up is, when anybody that's gone to a consumer show or outdoor show, is everybody is online according to their booth number, and then they usually have like a map drawn out of like what booth number is where and who's there. So when you go onto the ATA website, basically everybody still has their original booth number that they had reserved, but when you click on the booth number, it sends you to like a live webcam of that person. Mm-hmm. So basically you're getting the same effect. You can, stroll through, the bow alley and click on which ones you want to look at, talk to the people. So it's really, really impressive what they've done to keep the trade shows alive, because I hate to see these disappear due to this pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. It's really relieving that they are trying their best, and I'm sure they won't be canceled forever. I'm sure this is gonna, lighten up. Hopefully, next
2 weeks
year,
to flatten the
everything
curve,
will be back
folks.
to normal. Yeah, 2 weeks. But hopefully by next year, all this will be pretty much gone by the wayside. As we'll be able to go back to shows and stuff. But
as our good friend Trevor would say, we'll laugh about it later.
We'll definitely laugh about it later. But yeah, honestly, that's probably the coolest innovation in my mind about ATA this year. It's not anything that's going on at the show. It's just the fact that the show is going on.
Adapting to the times.
Yeah, definitely.
So, well, folks, thanks again for joining in, and I hope this helped you guys out, because I know I always look forward to YouTube during ATA week, because everybody's out there talking about the new products, and I don't buy all the new products, but I love seeing the new stuff that's out there, and we're hoping that maybe this will help you guys see what's new out there and what we found interesting. Hopefully you guys will too. So until next time, make sure you guys are getting outside.